Season 8, Episode 4. No bubbler for Dante today. Got some stuff going on. Canker sore, the whole winter time stuff, retainer stuff. But anyway, Season 8, Episode 4. We're going to go ahead and start this one off with a single bubbler crack. The only one that'll ever be in unison, I guess. Yeah. Okay, so today...
What a weird way to kick me when I'm down.
Well, it's not on you. We both just screwed up. But today we are talking about kind of the morality of art. If you don't know what morality means, just kind of the human morality. I don't know. Just I can't explain it very well. I'll just have you set up kind of what the theme is.
So this is one of those cases that hopefully we get into a pretty deep topic. Not sure how much we'll get in that we try within our time frame. And the reason we're addressing this is that we're not going to have any black and white answers per se. But as a creative, you have to make a choice sometimes about your style, what you stand for, and stuff like that. And so by at least discussing it and bringing up the idea of morality or social norms expressed through art gives you a chance to think about things. So I'm going to give you a couple of dots or moments to think about to set the scene. And actually the thing that started me thinking that this would be a good topic, and I was going to look it up before I got here. I forgot if it was either Spin or Rolling Stone. But dot number one is Motley Crue article just recently about how proud they are that their song Girls, Girls, Girls can be heard in strip clubs even today. Okay? When the song itself, if you don't know, it's an 80s song, is about strip clubs. And it actually shouts out some famous ones in Hollywood. Okay? So just... but they're just proud that, even now, that song is played all the time. Another one, the photographer Kevin Carter. He's the one who took the picture of the child with the vulture in the background, and he ended up committing suicide because of lots of things.
It was 4 months after he won the Pulitzer or something.
Yeah.
It was pretty quick after.
And people's response to it and their expectations of what he should have done. I just finished a book about, and now I forgot the photographer's name, his work in the civil rights movement and with Martin Luther King and the different marches, and some things that he did. Also, a personal dot in regards to my book, Under the Lights. Before I self-published it, I sent it into a contest, and I got a feedback, it was like, oh, cool story, da-da-da. But this is unrealistic because you don't have any cuss words. And I chose not. I do say they cuss, and I do use a few, but instead of using the F word and stuff like that, I just left it, just said they were, and so the feedback, but yet I've never had any of my reviews ever talk about me not using cuss words that made the book bad. Now, I do use the cuss words in my poetry, but not, and then we also got the 27 Club. If you don't know what that is, it's kind of not an urban legend per se, but is a group of artists and stuff that have lost their lives for different reasons. Some of it drug overuse, suicide, just weird accidents. But some
Homicide,
of that, but in that mix is a lot of musicians and stuff of heroin use, and things like that. So the idea is, and maybe the first question for you or to consider is, because we have said that art is actually a time capsule, a capture, but is the responsibility of artistic expression to reflect the social norms or to influence and change social norms? And one of my favorite poets, Langston Hughes, much of his poetry is about racism and stuff in Harlem and some stuff. And even, it's so morality in art is what? Is it reflection? Is it influence? Is it actually just the artists themselves expressing what they're going through?
I like how you prefaced it by no black and white answers, because I fall very in the middle of this. I think depending on what you want that art to serve as. We talked about how art is kind of timeless, or it withstands the test of time, whether it's good, bad, whatever, before. But being a reflection of the societal norms can be just as important looking back as influencing a change or other disposition in social norms. Because if you look at, though, say, for example, the Martin Luther King photos, if you were to flip it, he would say he was influencing a different, ideology or different rights in a social norm by photographing Martin Luther King and the protests and all. If you flipped it and you had a photographer that was photographing white supremacists or like KKK, that stuff, that's more reflecting.
He
what
actually
the social
has
norms.
A chapter on
Okay, so he kind
he
of
does
put his
like,
hand in both
but
aspects.
it's about the civil right. Like he's just the book, The Power of a Moment. I think. My bad. Sorry, I should have been a little bit more. But it is trying to cover, or he at that time that was kind of what he was sent down there to do, like to record.
Yeah, I think the reflection part tells more of a story in the moment. People can relate to that photo or song now because it's what's going on now, where the influential part maybe has more value or power, or you understand the message better looking back in time, because now you can kind of see some of those pieces of art that helped shape the next chapter in whether American history or just whatever.
Agreed, but it's an interesting. It's the aspect of also the consumerism of art and the music genre. Music genre is a little easier to use as an example because of the reflection of social norms or what sells. There's a TED Talk, and again, my bad, should have been more prepared, but we do try to be organic as well. There's a TED Talk about how record companies influence what hip-hop and rap is actually sold, what messages that they try to make sure get into that music instead of backing, like Public Enemy, even though they're popular, they're not popular. They're popular because they hold a strong message, and they've held it for a long time about social norms and how it needs to change. And they don't rap about strippers or money, and so their longevity has been there. But they had their a little flash, but they've never been backed like other types of music. Country music talks about alcohol and cheating and stuff. And it's not seen in the same way, but is it perpetrating a bad message, morality, and making it okay because it's country music and it's, middle of America.
Slow. I don't know.
It's not easy. This idea.
It's a very complex idea, and trying to relate it to just kind of photography, I feel like, I don't know, you answer the question. I need more time to think.
Well, it's not an easy thing, and I just have a little bit of a personal we all have personal connection to the idea, but I chose with my first novel, I chose not to use the major cuss words because I just wanted people to read it, and I do say like he came off the field cussing under like, and I'm just in that sense. I don't feel like I had to be explicit in usage of it to tell the story about how important it is to compete and to do your best you can and stuff like that. Where even in the literary, there's debate about the use of language, the overuse of just using the F word just for shock value or just to do that. And though the feedback to come back said this is unrealistic, people don't talk without like. Yeah, we do. Now, are there people who cuss? Yes, there is. And so my expression at that time was a choice. And that's part of why we're trying to discuss this, to get you creatives to think about that too. Like, what is your responsibility for what you're creating? And to a degree, are you just reflecting the social norm? Or are you trying to do something different? Are you breaking a rule? Are you trying to, some people, might argue that art can't change the world. But it can if it gets you to think, if it gets you to feel. But then that is at the part of the responsibility of the artist, like the photographer, Kevin, like the idea, he got so much backlash because people said he didn't do anything, didn't help the kid. But is it his job to do that? Why are we in that position? He's recording that moment in time.
Yeah, and if he would have gone it, even to take kind of a step further, if he would have placed that kid there next to the
picture, and he didn't do that,
right?
Like
that
he didn't
would be kind of a facade, and that's not really reflecting that time in history in that specific place, or influencing change down the road when people see a powerful image like that. Or if you went and helped the kid, okay, well, that image might have a lesser weight to it because, I took the image, now I'm going to change the environment, and now that's not the same environment. I think that's something that we are kind of losing in a sense. The thought that kind of came to my mind was like NFTs. People call that art and call that, just kind of artistic expression, but they're not really reflective. They're not really telling the morality of art. They're just kind of pictures of monkeys. And maybe we'll look back on that time just as a collective of, this was a really shallow time in art. But we have kind of gotten a little too into consuming art at the surface level instead of stripping it down and looking at what is the story being told here through this medium.
Yeah. But that, even to a degree, like piggyback the NFT thing, there's actually a broader avenue of that, but that's kind of the thing that people think about in that sense. And some, every artistic medium, has its moment to where, to a degree, people are like abstract art, digital photography versus analog, but there is a wider scape now of that. But is like, what at the heart of it, if you choose to create any art, should you consider the moral aspect of what you're doing? Or is, when you're addressing, or are you creating specific art to address moral content, and then to be aware of the trouble that might come about because of that, or the
I think you should understand it. I don't necessarily think it should change the way you create or the way you publish it. Understanding that this say you're a famous, author, photographer, whatever, understanding that whatever you put out there will be influential in some way, whether it's to one person or 100,000 people, and knowing kind of the possible weight that will bear, taking that picture with the vulture and publishing it, understanding what that backlash might be doesn't mean that you shouldn't put that out there, because then when you start subduing that those ideologies and those kind of themes, then it doesn't tell the whole story of maybe society at that point in time.
And see, I was wondering, because, so the book that I just got done was called Powerful Days. Powerful Days, Civil Rights Photography by Charles Moore. And Kevin's one, it just got me thinking, because as we were talking about this, because I just finished that book just a little, like last week even, is I don't think Charles Moore got any backlash for not helping the people who were protesting that were getting fire hosed and bitten by dogs and everything. But then we go to this Kevin's, and I don't think he was expecting the backlash for him not helping. And maybe that's the actual. I'm not saying it was not good that he left his family behind and the suicide and stuff, but that's a part of the moral aspect of the creator. But that people all of a sudden made or saying the artist is responsible for what you're addressing. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah.
Because then what is he supposed to do every time he sees that? Every time, is he supposed to take that kid back to the village or whatever, help the whole
Yeah, and he's there as a photographer.
It makes me think of, just to bring it to recently, the California wildfires. I saw some really kind of powerful images of that.
Oh,
no one expects the photographer to go start dumping water, going into the houses looking for house pets or anything.
Yeah. And then Public Enemy came out. Chuck D was like, stop using our song, Hollywood Burned. People were using that as a loop on TikTok and Instagram, showing that. And he's like, that is not. So he made a moral stance there to degrees that is unacceptable. Do not use my music, which that song is a protest against the film and television aspect of Hollywood at that time.
Seen some of those TikToks,
yeah. And so there's that line where the artist Chuck D is like, no, unacceptable, because because you're using my art just to get play for and. It's interesting. This moral fiber that kind of does run. It runs through every artistic expression. But do we? It's a hard question, because within my poetry and stuff, I cover some hard topics. I don't cuss a lot. I do have used the F word, when I felt appropriate. Am I trying to change the world? Not exactly, but I'm trying to build that bridge to help other people who've ever felt, or things along that line, and to make a difference. So I don't just randomly try to make a poem that is shocking just for shock value. In that regard, I am a little bit cognitive of what my theme is and what I'm trying to do, because, and we talked about that though, and maybe in the discussion of the morality is understanding what is the bridge you're building to the person who is actually going to see that.
Yeah, so to slightly bring it into photography, it was 2 years ago where it was really hot, right at the very, very beginning of, not right before kind of AI. It was more manual AI, I guess. Manipulating sky replacements was a big one. Replacing the sky.
The guy who got the airplane.
Yes, that was fake. Yeah.
Yes, that was fake.
And so, to bring it to landscape photography, when you put kind of a heavier edit, you change the lighting in a lot of ways. Maybe you remove all the people from, like, for example, taking a picture like Machu Picchu or something. You're rarely going to get it where there's nobody there. So you take out all the people, you change the lighting a little bit. Maybe you fix kind of some ugly cracks in the wall, like just whatever. You kind of make it not really what it looks like. There's a lot of people that go kind of back and forth on that's not actually a photo that tells the story of Machu Picchu, because that's not actually what it looks like now. That's not actually. Yeah. And I go back and forth on it because my photos do not look like what the original
raw
scene looks like. But I understand that it's going to tell a maybe slightly not manipulated story, but different story than what's just the raw, real image. But I also, that's the way that I tell my stories, and that's the art that I have. And I don't feel my responsibility or my job is to tell the raw stories, because that's not who I am as a creative. If someone wants to do more raw work, just no edit, phone, this is just what it
follow my Instagram.
Yeah, this is just what it looks like. We're not going to pretty it up or anything. This is just what's happening. There's a space for that too, and that they have like their responsibility. I have my responsibility, so to speak, to tell my story the way, or the stories that I see the way that fits me creatively.
So, and that's part of I think the really hard aspect of when you're creative. And some people, I think they just create, and that's fine, but there is, however small, okay? I understand that my writing and stuff like that just makes small little waves in the big pool of life. And I'm okay with that. I've gotten, there's enough people in my little community, but I know that there's a ripple. And I do think if there is any black and white aspect of thinking about morality and stuff, is that an artist, to be respectful and to be true to your art, even if you're manipulating or you're doing, because if I use a poetic form, I'm manipulating my idea to fit, something instead of just I think it matters. I think it's important. It's kind of like knowing the rules so that you can break them. Know that you are addressing whatever small component of the social norm or the some type of morality in your work.
Well, and like even with the Powerful Days book, he could have left out, like, everybody has their own kind of opinions on what story they want to tell. And so he could have left out maybe some police abusive photos or things like that. He could have told a different story the way he saw fit. You might look at it and say, yeah, he told kind of the whole raw story, but there were maybe some photos of like white people helping out black people, or like something like that he left out or that somebody else put in. There is such a wide breadth of just ideas and opinions and thoughts all over that we can't tell the entire story ourselves. And so maybe my photos tell a more positive side of the Grand Tetons or whatever, or Yellowstone, and other people's photos want to tell a story about Yellowstone and how global warming affects our nation's oldest national park. But I don't see that as my responsibility.
Right. And that's the morality that you are as a creative like you're cognitive of it, and so you make sure that the end product is matching what you want to do. So here's a hard question within, I was thinking about that. So how would a creative handle things that they disagree with but need to be in their art?
I think that's hard. I think it's so much easier to say than done of having an open mind. And I think the things that hit you deep down that you're like, oh, they don't know what they're talking about, are usually the things that you probably actually do need to address or change or whatever, or at least explore. That's like, I try to kind of open up my mind at times. Like, I have a film camera that is a lot more raw than I will. Like, I'll never be able to manipulate that slide of film. And
we don't have dark rooms anymore.
Right. I mean, I can go get them developed, but like, I don't really have control to change the blues, change the greens, things like that. Crop in, crop out, whatever. AI generative fill. But that's something where, like, when I take those photos, I have to think about it a lot more. I have to know that the lighting's right. Just kind of manipulate almost the scene better to take the photo, whether it's cropping, angles, whatever. And there are some times when I think maybe my photos are too processed. I don't really get that feedback much, but that's kind of some internal feedback. But yeah, that's probably one of the harder things to do as an artist is maybe you are being too negative toned in your maybe my hype videos are too slow or monotonous or not different enough, things like that. And it definitely takes time to be able to accept that constructive criticism or
well, and
pivot.
Like I said at the beginning, a part of this is also it doesn't matter where you at creatively. This, I think, is a deep tone voice aspect also of who you become and what you choose to create as an artist, and it helps get you there. And it's something you really, when you do the self-reflection or you do that stuff and you're deciding on what to create, I think it's an important component because you got to know yourself to know where your aspect is. So as an example, I have some poetry that deals with alcohol and stuff like that, and none of them are positive. Like, yeah, drinking is awesome. Now, if you want to have I have a beer at dinner, when we're out, on a date with mom or something, but we don't really have alcohol in our house. I really don't see it, or I see it in a negative light because of my history, but I'm not you know what I'm saying? So I know though that I'm showing a component of drinking alcohol about the serious effects of it. But I have not created any art that glorifies it, like country music or rap or heavy metal or whatever, all the genres of music that put it out there in that light. And I probably will never write a poem or anything that does that. And not because I think if you enjoy alcohol and a drink, that's fine. I don't, but that's not what I'm going to probably make in a positive light. Versus I feel it's not totally negative. It's more like, hey, pay attention to the consequences of what this does.
Yeah, and that's even like, it's a lot related to photo editing. It's funny because we have so many consumers now that just want every reflection of society to be what they consider where they fit in. And that's where a lot of the negativity comes from, is if this responsibility, this morality doesn't tell the same story or reflection that I want it to, they're just negative towards it, and they're openly negative.
So
that's
sadly, our culture is a little bit black and white, or like divided. Like nobody's at least appreciating the other narratives.
Yeah, and just not opening your mind up to everything else that's out there. And like, so the photo that I have right there is edited differently, a lot more differently than what I edit photos. in that photo specifically, I would bring out the color of the ocean, the sunset, all that. Where in that photo, it's really, really subdued. But I still like that photo because I would like to think I have kind of an open mind. It's different. It's still a good photo. It's cool, all those things. And it's interesting to look into different ways that people tell those stories and express their morality in their art, just to see how they look at things and how you look at things, and like compare and contrast those differences and maybe similarities.
Yeah. There is still so much to actually cover in regards to morality.
Part 2 later in the season.
We're hoping to have a guest for our next episode, but we'll see. With that, morality is a fabric of every artist. I think, though, the one real answer is you need to be aware of it. It does, questioning yourself, growing, I think it helps you understand what kind of artist that you want to be, and what you might want to cover, how you might want to do that. It's interesting if you really break down how art, if you remember Wordsworth way back in the day, the world is too much with us late and soon we, he was doing a cultural rant against society at that time, and it's just a part of art. It does, whether it reflects it or changes it or whatever. Morality, social norms, cultural norms are a thread of the artistic expression. So understanding yours or working through yours, I think, helps you become a better artist.
Yeah. It's a good episode.
Yeah.
You should like this episode on Spotify, YouTube, all the things.
Yeah. Give us the social props.
Yeah. That was season 8, episode 4 of The Creative Moment. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you as always for your support. Again, hopefully we have a guest on for our next episode. Kind of a different guest, not kind of in between our worlds in a sense. Not necessarily what either of us do creatively. So kind of a little dive into a different creative industry. So Hopefully we can get that together for next time. But until then, thanks guys as always, and see ya in a couple weeks.
Oh.